Hey guys, Jason Clark here. Just had an incredible conversation with my friend Brent Lokker. We did a split where I was on his podcast, Vibrant Life, and he was on mine. Two birds with one stone. Brent and I go back a ways, and I'm so thankful for him. And every time we get together, whether we're recording or not, we have a profound conversation. In this one, we dove into what God is doing right now in the church, what we're experiencing, and revelation. What is revelation? This discovery of what was always there, union. And we talk about the difference between the knowledge of good and evil, that paradigm over there, and the invitation into the tree of life, a way of living from instead of toward. I'm here at a church coffee house, found a room to do this, checking out the on the road gear. Anyway, I love this conversation with Brent. Excited to introduce him to you. Haven't had him on the podcast in a couple of years, a couple of seasons. And so there's lots of folks that maybe don't know my good friend, Brent Lokker. Guys, you can find me at all of the socials at Jason Clark is. That's Twitter, Instagram. We also have an Instagram, Rethinking God with Tacos, where I'm there and my daughter Madeline helps run that. You can join us over there. Also, Rethinking God with Tacos Facebook group, and lots of life happening there. It's first and foremost about connecting. So kindness and trust is our highest goal, but that makes it a safe place to have conversations, lots of incredible interactions and resources. Rethinking God with Tacos Facebook group. We're listener supported. We're a nonprofit. A Family Story is a nonprofit, and so thankful for those who have partnered with us in giving. You can give at afamilystory.org, afamilystory.org. And that's where you also sign up for our mailing list, where we keep you up to date on maybe Tacos Conference, Zoom communities. We're going to get better at letting folks know when and where we meet. Have some amazing folks that are hosting those. New books, my speaking schedule, getting better at keeping that updated. And just all the going-ons of this podcast. offamilystory.org is where you can give and sign up for the mailing list, and I recommend it. Thankful for you guys. Thankful to be on this journey with you. This podcast is truly life-giving to me, and I am so grateful for all the folks that I've met either on the podcast or because of it. So this is my conversation with my good friend, Brent Lokker. I think you guys are going to be encouraged and really, really love Brent. I know I do. Thankful for him. Enjoy.
Jason Clark.
Brent Lokker, my friend. We're doing it.
We're doing it. We're having another time together. When I called you on the phone, I don't know, last week, a couple days ago, and I told Suzanne when I got off the phone, I said, I so love this guy. And I said, but what I really love is that instantly, every time we talk, I feel a heart connection. I mean, instantly.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
So thanks, buddy. I appreciate that.
Same here. I've been using the language of yes and lately a lot with my friends that, that comedy troupe. The first thing you learn on a comedy troupe is if someone says something off the wall, your job is to say yes and add to the crazy. But I've been using it in light of my friends who are the yes and friends around the goodness of God.
Nice.
And you're one of those guys, my yes and. I might have a thought about the goodness of God. I'll throw it at my friend Brent, and he doesn't stumble over it or get concerned or talk about slippery slopes. Instead, he goes, yes, and. And you need those guys in your life, and I feel the same way, man. So we're doing a 2-for-1. We're doing Rethinking God with Tacos podcast
and Vibrant Life. Yeah, we said, hey, let's do this together. Yeah. We won't be interviewing each other. We're just going to be sharing life and sharing the goodness of God, and we're both going to release it to our families.
Yes.
Yeah. So
hey,
that sounds like a great idea.
You like my background?
I do. Do you want to explain it?
This isn't my office. Normally I got guitars and some books, I'm at a church that I had to do this offsite. I'm checking out my offsite gear. It's working.
Nice. Good.
So I
Good,
got
good.
baskets.
Yeah. Nice. Well,
Start
I'll
us
jump.
off.
Yeah. I'll just jump in to say, lately I have been feeling like there's a lot of these Nicodemus coming to Jesus in the middle of the night moments. They seem to be happening more and more frequently, and I
Yeah.
love it. And just to, of course, you know this, Jason, but to explain a little further, is Nicodemus who, man, around his religious friends, he could not ask the questions he wanted
Yeah.
to ask Jesus because he saw life in this man. He's like, what is it about you that my current life is not giving me access to? So
Yeah.
he comes and finds him in the middle of the night. Um, Nick at night is what is what happened here. And anyway, I'm discovering this, and I'm having so much fun, Jason, realizing the wealth of what's been inside of me as these conversations come. I don't have to grapple anymore with, oh shoot,
Yeah.
what do I say? What are the answers? No, I just get to let life ooze out. And yeah, so that's and one. I'll just start with one of them lately that has really gripped me again. The Galatians 2:20, which is, it's no longer I who live, but it's Christ who lives in me. And the Holy Spirit just dropped in me these two phrases. It's not me. Sorry, it's not I, it's us. It's not me, it's we.
Yeah.
And everything I do now is so different. I feel like, because all of us, we keep emerging into truth. Like the good news keeps coming in greater and greater wealth
Yeah.
as revelation is given to us. That's all a gift, right? But there's something about this last shift. It just seems like anxiety's gone. Like in this interview, I'm not doing this interview. We are, as in Jesus and I. It just, it's a different feel. It's so
Yeah.
good. And there's
Yeah.
nothing new about that. It's not like
Yeah.
it's new, brand new revelation. It just got a whole lot deeper.
Yeah.
So I get to share this with these friends of mine that are coming, who are saying, man, I've done the be good thing. I've done the hardest I can to try to find life in what I'm doing. And it's just, what am I missing?
Yeah.
It's empty. Or a friend of mine
Yes.
recently said, there's this hole in my heart that I just can't
Come
fill.
on. Come on.
So anyway, that's
Bro,
one of the many gems I could throw out there.
I was on the phone and I'm having conversations on a regular basis. I had two today back to back on the phone, and I was recognizing the similarities of, first of all, what you talked about, this hole in our heart, this place, this rich young ruler. We're in a season, I believe, where the church as a whole is having a rich young ruler moment,
Hmm.
where we have taken they were having this conversation, if you will, with Jesus, where we're like, hey, we've done all the stuff. What more can we do? And of course, Jesus speaks to the rich young ruler. He says, well, have you done, and he gives him a few more things. Have you done these things? He's checking off the list. And the rich young ruler responds, I've done those things. And I think at this point, Jesus is ready for the next phrase, which is, what am I still lacking?
Hmm.
Which to me is where we're at. It's a beautiful moment in the church where Jesus had to be thrilled with that. What am I still lacking? Because you're on a road that ultimately takes you to the conclusion, I've done all the stuff. What am I still lacking?
Yeah.
I'm in the midst of, and I feel like we're in a spot where there's a holy unrest, but
Hmm.
also in the ether, there is a big yes. In the hearts and minds of folks who aren't having to grapple through his goodness. His goodness is easier to hear. They're less concerned about I made the joke that you're a yes and guy around the goodness of God, but I feel like right now we're in a season where there's a yes and in the room, in the church right now. There's a hunger, and they're tired of more things to do. They
Yep.
don't need another service. They don't need to go to something. They want to know about the goodness of God. They're
Yes.
even open to being offended. by how good he is. I was listening to Bruce Walkup a little while back, and his Australian fellow friend of Baxter Kruger. Can't recommend him enough. His name is spelled Chopi, but it's pronounced Walkup. And he said he'd been preaching this good news, this union truth, this revelation of union for the last 20 years. If he were preaching it to a room of 100, one person was getting it. But now he's preaching to a room of 100 in the last few years, and everyone in the room is getting it in different ways. And I'm excited, man. I mean, all revelation is, and I feel like this is what we're in. All revelation is seeing what was always there.
Right.
You know, it's when I was in Bible college, and you can play off this. I went to with a bunch of my guy friends. We got permission to leave campus and go up to Toronto, where there was the Father's Love movement, the airport vineyard, or what it was called back then. This awakening movement taking place, revival, and all kinds of wild things taking place, miracles. We went and saw it, and I was intrigued, but still reserved. It was a little bit longer before I dove in. On the way back, we stopped at this outdoor art museum, and I say that loosely. It was at the Falls of Niagara on the Canadian side. It was the first time I had seen this art, digital striations. It was presented as art, but it was this digital graphic. Looked like Max Headroom had just thrown. You remember Max Headroom, and every presentation at the bottom had a title. It said Lady Liberty or The Terminator, and I'm looking at it, and I just think this is some sort of modern art, you know. And then my friends start talking about the 3D image. You remember the 3D images?
Yes.
They start talking about the 3D images hidden on the page. I never saw it that night. I thought they were lying. I was like, oh yes, this is a deep, definitely Lady Liberty. I was being abstract, thinking we were having. I thought they were lying to me. I stayed there. They were saying, look at your nose, look down your. And I spent an hour in front of those things till they finally said we're leaving. They made me go. For the next year, I would open those things. Became an American experience. So you couldn't go into a Barnes and Nobles without there being a bookshelf full of them. And I'd pull it up. I got married, or I was dating my wife at that point. And actually, it was years. Once I got married, she could see it, boom, boom, over and over. Yeah, it was the most frustrating thing. But I remember the day that I went into a Barnes and Nobles. My new bride, she's whipping through them, and there, all of a sudden, it popped off the page. Then I lost it, and I thought, whatever you're doing, and there it was. And I saw it, this image popping off the page. Right. I started flipping through and seeing the image. I saw it. New synapses firing, new ways of thinking, my brain being rewired. I feel like that's the season we're in. We're at that moment right now where it's always been. He's always been a father who doesn't look away. God has always been in Christ, reconciling the world to himself. He has always been better than our last best thought about him. It's a revelation, and we are in the midst of the image popping off the page, and us realizing, it's there, and we're having new ways of thinking, new ways of seeing, new ways of understanding. It's in the ether, and so the conversations I was having today were those conversations. And the fun was to be able to go, hey, if you need some understanding around union, and you need it to be, you need it to be funny and storytelling, and I've got some books for that. But if you need some understanding academically, if you need to understand early church fathers, if you need to have a understanding of how we approach Scripture through a Christocentric hermeneutic, I can point you to those guys too. There's so many resources. There's podcasts. There's what you're doing and what we're doing. I'm seeing a cross pollination. I'm sorry. I'm excited. I'm about 4 days away from going on a 10-day trip where I'm going to be in 3 different places, and they're all different streams, all awakening to the perfection of his love, all finding language and nuance and insight, and it's exciting stuff.
I love it. I love it. And like you said, it's like nothing has. You said nothing has changed. It's all there.
Yeah.
So a different way of saying it is nothing has changed and everything has changed.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
because we're seeing what we couldn't see before.
Right.
And here's the other thing is once you see it, of course you can't unsee it anymore.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
your example, once that 3D comes alive, now you can step in front of any one of those pictures and
Yeah.
somehow your brain knows how to engage in a way that allows that image to pop out.
Yeah.
And you can't undo that anymore. Like
No.
I agree, Jason.
Yeah.
And so there's this place. I don't have my notes, my journal in front of me, but there was something the other day and I just said, wow, everything has changed. Like I can't go back ever to a place of not seeing God's goodness or
Yeah.
living in a place of anxiety because it's all on me. It's like, no, I can't go back to those places anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
wow.
It's like Baxter says it. Kruger says, once you've had steak, you can't pretend the cardboard is steak anymore.
Yeah.
And he's not saying it even to be condescending or
No,
sarcastic.
no.
It's just what you said. This gospel is so beautiful. The conversation I have with these guys, and I know you can speak to this. One of the fellows was sharing where he was still getting triggered. Had some friends who were questioning him, and that term "slippery slope." And he's just in his own personal life experiencing such revival and renewal, transformation, the kindness of God that is actually transforming him from the inside out, the
Mhm.
way his relationships are panning out, the peace that surpasses understanding. He's in circumstances that are beyond his capacity to understand, which is, as Bill tells us, where you actually get to access this peace. He's
Right.
experiencing these things, and then he got triggered, and he was like, "Man, how do I navigate that?" And I said, "Well." I said the simple is prayer is, Father, show me who you are. Get in
Yeah.
alignment with how what Jesus revealed him. Show me how you see me. This is my prayer. This is how I invite people into it, and come into agreement with how he sees you, and then you'll get perspective on that. First John 4, I think verse 19 says, "We love because he first loved." So get yourself back into a place where you're resting in his affection,
Mm-hmm.
and there'll be an ease. But as I hung up, so after I shared that, as I hung up, I began to process, and just thinking through how I navigate. And I thought, it's beautiful spot I'm in where I'm convinced Emmaus Road Jesus is walking with everyone, and so there's a natural ease and grace
Mm-hmm.
for wherever anyone is on the journey, because I know that my best friend Jesus is speaking to them in the language of their understanding with the purpose of revelation. Again, we're back to revelation. He
Right.
hides himself on the road
Right.
so he can reveal himself in a new way.
Yes.
When they bring him into the house and they break the bread, eyes are open to what was
Yes.
always true
Yes.
before the foundations of the world. That
Right.
the Lamb was slain, and here he
Yeah.
is risen.
Yeah.
And it's the revelation we're awakening to, this beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And us risen with him, and yet this is just the way it is.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So also I'm seeing the goodness of God just as I'm walking through life and experiencing things. Now I'm also seeing the parallels of how everything is pointing to God's love if we will see it.
Come
I
on.
want to give you an example that my wife and I, we get to babysit our granddaughter who's 2 and just a total doll and
So
love. 2 days a week usually we get to spend the day with her and care for her, which is our joy to do. And but so she's potty training. She's at that age and does really well. But one day, she was playing, and then she kind of said she wanted to come sit next to me on the couch. Sure, come on over. So
yeah.
we're sitting there, and all of a sudden, we were just playing, doing not much of anything. She's sitting next to me. I'm not touching her or anything. And all of a sudden, she starts screaming, and I'm like, "What's wrong?" Like right away, "What's
Right.
wrong?" And I look down, and I'm looking like, did she touch something? Did she,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like, did
Right.
something hurt her? And there was nothing. And I immediately took her into me, held her like to comfort her. And that's when I felt a little bit of wet on me. I'm like, oh, I know what's going on. I run her over to the bathroom. Suzanne, my wife, and I, we tag team. So she's helping Iris to, finish in the bathroom and clean her up, and I'm back at the couch cleaning that up a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Which we're grandparents now. We're not parents. I'm like, doesn't even bother me.
No, that's
it's okay. But here's the thing. So Iris, Suzanne cleans her up. I'm still cleaning the couch, and Iris makes her way back out. She calls me Papa. She wants to know what she's going back to the scene of the crime, if you will, in her eyes, not in my eyes.
Right.
And here's the thing: she can't bring herself to come over to me. Instead, she sits about 8 feet away. I'm on the couch. She's over on the hardwood floor in the entryway. Tucks her knees up to her chest and puts her head down. And I said, oh, hi, Iris. I said, oh, it's okay. And just starts bawling.
Wow.
Head down, shame.
Yeah.
I'm bad.
Yeah.
And so at this point, and I said, okay, I need to go be with my little sweetheart here. So I actually went to the floor first. I didn't walk up, towering over her.
Yeah.
I kind of, on my hands and knees, went over to her and just got myself in front of her and put an arm around, hand on her back and rubbing her. And I said, oh, sweetie, it's okay. I said, you didn't do anything wrong, Iris. I said, you're doing so good. And think of all the times you did great. And I said, this is not a problem.
Yeah.
You haven't done anything wrong. And now she's, her eyes are back up, and there's Papa, and now she's ready to engage again. And of course, I just saw all this and I go, oh my goodness, this is always, not sometimes, but always the heart of our Father.
Come on.
Who, we do something we call sin. I think sin is actually something other than the things we do. I think sin is, we'll get that, we can go back there, but we do something that brings us shame, and I'm bad. And so then we sit a little ways away, head down, because we won't allow ourselves to go to Papa.
Yeah.
But that's not Papa. He didn't do that. We did. That's the lie. We did it.
Yeah.
And then what does he do? Oh, he comes over and comforts and puts his hand around and says, oh, let me tell you who you are. You're not bad. You never have been.
Come on, bro.
And draws us back into the truth and the enjoyment of relationship again. And I've been sharing that story with a handful of people whenever, because shame brings people to places where they say, I'm distant from God. And I say, no, actually you're not.
Yeah. But
I can tell you why you feel that way. Yeah. And I can tell you what Papa's doing right now to bring you back in.
Bro, I love it's the gospel that is what is empowering us to feel such a grace right now, because it's the gospel in which he steps inside every delusion. I mean, it's even that delusion of shame that somehow she picked up on. Somehow it was the garden scene that you were participating in, where you went walking in the cool of the day to go find her. Yes. It's the woman caught in adultery, where the first thing he does is remove shame. He looks around the group and says, you want to participate in this lack system, the system of lack? You're all lacking. Every one of you is guilty in this system, every one of you. And once he exposes lack, the reality of the law that leads to death, this punitive view on sin, if you're having a conversation around sin, once he disengages that reality, steps outside of that paradigm, what he's doing is he's removing the shame. He's saying, look around, honey, where are your accusers? Look around. Neither will I. All condemnation, all shame is gone. Yep. And then he deals with this lie of separation, this delusional perspective on who he is, who God is, and then who we are, go and sin no more.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't saying go behave better. He was saying you weren't created to be someone's plaything or to be someone's, to live in this fractured reality. You were created and designed to live from my affection, from my union, from my love, prone to love, prone to righteousness. Now we can talk about that issue of sin. It's not who you are.
Right.
It's beautiful. And I love the, I say this with the littles. We used to joking and say in our house when our kids were all little in potty training, you know, that brown smudge on the light switch, it's a 50-50 that's chocolate. Just wipe it off. Just wipe it off and keep moving, man, because that's the journey we're on. We're in the middle of that season. But I love it.
So good. So good.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I got this similar story. It's that stepping in. That's what took place. It's why there's an ease that he steps into our delusion. I have that same story with Eva when she was little, between birth and about 2. She was a mama's girl, and you could not be separated from her mom. And I jokingly say, for the first year, I wasn't sure she liked me. You know, hey, darling. And that's my daughter right there. She's 17. She was just loved her mama. Anyway, at 2, occasionally Karen, you had to really plan when Karen left the house if she was going to leave without Eva, because otherwise you had a disaster on your hands. Right. But occasionally Karen would just walk out the door to get the mail, not thinking, because it's just down at the edge of the driveway. Yeah. And if Eva caught her, happened to see her just walk out casually she just fell apart. And I remember one time she just fell apart, just a disaster. And I did the same thing. I got low and I scooped down and I said, "Oh, baby, I got you. And I'm holding, it's all right, Mama's here. I carried her over to the door. The door had only glass at the top part of the door. And so as I lifted her up to show, see, Mom. And as I was doing that, I realized this is the Father. He said, "This is what I do for you. I don't look at you and go, you so immature. She's just getting the mail." Like I step into the moment you're in. If your maturity level is 2, then I am 2 with you. I step into the 2-year-old space with you.
Yes.
And I don't expect you to be 3. I expect you're 2. So I'm just going to climb down here with you. Yes. But also you picked her up so she could see from my perspective, because I'm going to walk with you. I'm going to carry you. And I love that. That's why I can have a conversation and go, he's the Emmaus Road Jesus. He's the good Father, stepping into our place of understanding, speaking to us in the language of our understanding, and also inviting us into revelation, his perspective on
Yeah. I love that,
stuff.
Jason.
Here will I sing. Oh.
Hey guys, interrupt him for a second. Glad you're here. So thankful for this podcast, thankful to get to do this with friends, thankful for Derek and all of those who've navigated it with us. Listen, this podcast is done under our nonprofit, A Family Story. 12 years ago, I had a vision and I wrote it down. I'm going to read it to you. Family Story is a relational community of creatives, family and friends. I see all of us as creatives. We do life together. We envision and express God's love through our gifting and grace. We are worshipers, dreamers, storytellers, and preachers, a family of dads and moms, brothers and sisters, daughters and sons, united by a passion to know and reveal God's perfect love. I feel like I'm seeing the fulfillment of some of that vision 12 years ago. The mandate on A Family Story was to create media content catalytic for an encounter with the love of God. afamilystory.org is our website. I encourage you to go there. There's a whole lot of media content there. There's books and articles. There's films, some music, and this podcast. That's the home of Rethinking God with Tacos, which is pretty dang cool. It's been life-giving, as I said, the community around it, the community of creatives, of family and friends that's growing. It's blown me away. And so I'm thankful. I'm thankful for all the relationships, connections, and I'm thankful for all those who've given. Rethinking God with Tacos is listener-supported. If you'd like to support us, you can go to afamilystory.org. Again, we're a nonprofit. And I would encourage you to join us on our Facebook group. Follow us on Instagram, all the socials. If you're curious how to find me on the socials, it's at Jason Clark is. Otherwise, like, share, write a review on iTunes or Spotify. Tell your mom. We really are loving doing this, and I'm so thankful for everyone here. All right, it's time to get back to the podcast.
Yeah, I love that. When we're two, he responds to us as a 2-year-old, and I love that. You know, what if we lived life instead of seeing life as all the wrong things we do, but rather if we just saw it as we wouldn't be able to be at the place we're at unless we had gone through what we went through, and that in any given time we could only respond to the way the revelation we had at the time would give us ability to do.
Yeah.
And I think we all could be so much kinder to ourselves and to other people, not judging where people are at. I'm talking theologically, like in their understanding, awareness of God, but I'm also just talking about life choices. And we want to help people know who they are and make better choices for sure. But last I knew, I have zero control over anybody else. And the one thing Jesus told me to do is to love everyone in the same way that I'm loved. And so I love how you're saying, I really appreciate how you're saying that he approaches us where we're at, but then always gives us invitation into more, into would you like a little bit greater view, a little bit, more wonderful view of my kindness, because it's going to change you. My kindness doesn't change, but it's going to change you.
Yes. And then it's that truth that sets you free. It's the idea that he didn't leave the woman in the paradigm of good and evil, which is where the church has been wrestling. It's why we're exhausted, because we keep battling over here and getting caught up in the dualistic realities of us and them and for and against. He doesn't leave her over there where honestly the only options over there is we either throw rocks at her, because that's what the law says you have to do. You have to throw rocks at her, which is brutal. It's heartbreaking. It's evil. So you either have to throw rocks or create some sort of fractured subculture that will support her right to be used in this way and to live in this way. And because you've got to remember, women were they didn't have the ability to vote. So we're having a conversation where in this paradigm, you either have to throw rocks or you have to create some sort of subculture to normalize this broken situation. Neither one of them lead to life. And what you're talking about is this invitation to step into that spot, as Jesus does on the cross, as Jesus does on the road to Emmaus, as we're talking about the Father in Christ is doing as well at the cross. Step into that place and invite them to step out of the knowledge of good and evil and into the revelation of it is very good. That he is restoring all things, and he is bringing us into that place, that perspective, that liberty, because there's freedom there. There's no freedom over in this paradigm. There's no liberty there. You're still trapped. You're throwing rocks one way or the other. This is where you discover the truth that sets you free.
Right. I was just thinking back about, you mentioned the garden earlier, and just thinking about how God, approached Adam, and he even said, who told you were naked?
Right.
Who told you that? Because it wasn't me. Where did you get that shame, I'm bad, I got to cover up thing? Because it didn't come from me. Another one you mentioned, the woman who was caught in adultery. I wish we had her name, because even that's a label, a label we use. Woman caught in adultery. I'm like, no, this child of the king, daughter, beautiful, glorified daughter who in a moment forgot who she was. Anyway, is restored. But another one is, of course, the woman at the well, told in the book of John. And same thing where he removes shame first by seeing her. And
Yes.
I know we've talked about this before, but by seeing her, acknowledging her in a culture that not only because she is a woman, but a half breed, if you will, like one
Sure.
that had, was trounced by her own community. He sees her, he introduces her to the Father, not just to a God out there, but to the Father. Of course, because she's seen, now she becomes the agent of transformation to others. She runs to the city. Once we're loved, then we love. Once we are not judged and not shamed, we can turn around and do the same to others.
Yeah.
And that I wanted to get to this because this is another fresh one for me, Jason, is that when she comes back and or sorry, when Jesus is talking to his disciples and he says, you say 4 more months and then the harvest, but I tell you, look, because the harvest is white. And for so long, I thought in kind of a revival culture where you're waiting for God somehow to flip a switch so that everyone has revelation and everyone runs to Jesus. I don't think that's even what he's saying there. I think he's talking to us, those who already see him, know him, and he's saying, I want you to look with my eyes. Look around at the harvest, white for harvest. People have talked about that's like the sun, the glistening golden on the grain, right? In
Yeah.
other words, look at everyone. They are all filled with my glory. You need to see it. Because if you will see them filled with my glory the way I do, it'll change how you interact with every single individual heart. Everybody will be
Yeah.
open to being loved, treasured, seen,
Yeah.
cared for.
Yeah.
And then where that road leads, that like the road to Emmaus, it leads where it leads. Like Jesus will walk them into greater life. But that was, to me, it was so revealing, like, oh my gosh, I'm not waiting for God to flip a switch on. He's waiting for me to see everyone,
Yeah.
every child of his,
Yeah.
as filled with his glory,
Yeah.
but so that we treat them with the honor, the value that he
Yes.
already sees. So once again, nothing has changed and everything has changed
Yes.
once
Yeah.
we see that truth.
Bro, I love that. Because, I was raised in probably in the same thinking that we have these seasons, we have harvest seasons, and we have reaping, or we have sowing and we have reaping seasons, right? And
Right.
and yet there's an invitation to discover, and these conversations are so much. I love you, man. These conversations are so much fun for me because I get to with my friends revisit something that I grew up with, and find union is reframing how I read something I haven't seen before. Like, you're basically saying, hey, we can read this in this paradigm over here, where we got to live in the constraints of good and evil, and we've got to live focused on how to obey, and we're principle driven, and it's a whole lot of transaction. Well, we can live from the finished work. And we can begin to perceive through the finished work that it is
Hmm.
already done. And now we're participating. We're actually seated in Christ at the right hand of the Father, perceiving that it is a harvest season and a sowing season, that we are participating in the rhythms of grace. It's years ago. I had a conversation with my Heavenly Father where he brought up, I think it's Proverbs 13. It's hope deferred makes the heart sick, but longing or desires realized is the tree of life. The tree of life. 3 times it's referenced in Genesis, in this proverb, and in Revelation. That's it. The tree of life. It's the tree of
Hmm.
life. I think it's you. But I'm reading that, and my father says, I'd always read hope deferred makes the heart sick as a commentary. It's like, no kidding. Like I can I can say that all day long. Hope deferred makes the heart sick. I got the wounds and the scars. He said, Jason, you can read this as a commentary, or you can read it as an invitation. You can live here where you're in the constructs of lack, having to participate in deferred hope, where you can actually live in longing fulfilled. You can actually live from desire fulfilled, from the finished work. Yeah, in the tension of the experience, but you can live from this place. I feel like that's what you're inviting us to participate in that interpretation of that scripture. It's
Yeah.
good stuff, man.
Really, really good stuff. Yeah, the truth just gets more richer and richer, doesn't it?
I say it all the time. So there's a reason we call it the good news. Uh,
So I know we could probably talk all day long, but I think maybe these nuggets might be enough for one time, and maybe we do this again.
well, I am game with whatever. Your format is probably closer to where we're running, so I'll submit to that. I do want to say we because we're doing a merged podcast, we
Yeah.
could do like rethinking God with we can do tacos, um, uh, or we could talk. Your favorite thing. What do you do, man? What's your favorite meal? If you and I get together, when I came and visited you, you guys got COVID, and
Uh,
so Karen and I came all the way to California. No, I'm just kidding. It was. I remember we came and we had a beautiful time at the church, and then
yeah.
we met with you guys. You had enough energy that we went to a park and we sat
Yeah.
our park. I
Yeah.
think we shared a meal, but we kind of brought box. What did we bring?
I think it was Mediterranean.
Ah, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I got a memory for food.
That's my wife. She would have known too. Rethinking God with Mediterranean. But you gotta have a taco story, man. Do you have one on?
A,
I didn't
a
even warn you.
taco story. Well, you know, I think far and away, if I'm looking at a menu, fish tacos is the direction I go.
Yeah.
But which really then takes me to I'm gonna jump off of that a little bit and say one of my favorite things to make at home is macadamia nut crusted Chilean sea bass,
Come
which
on.
is melt in your mouth delish with a very long season, topping, and it's amazing. The thing is it it takes me a good hour and a half to 2 hours start to finish. So
Yeah.
whenever I say, oh, I want to do this for company, then I always forget, oh shoot, that takes me out of the loop
Right.
for a
Right.
while.
Well, I think you could get away with making that sea bass, putting a little bit in a taco, maybe
Yes,
with a little bit of cabbage. Maybe I think probably you would put a little bit. I don't know. I think you
absolutely.
could, and some drizzle, some aioli on there, and that counts. We had our taco conversation. Before I let you go, I just got to say, and I'm going to do an intro on the front too. I love you, man. I
Thank you.
We met probably at this point. I don't know how many years ago, 6, 7 years ago, and hit it off right away.
Yeah.
It was in a season where you want to talk about hidden. I've lived most of my life hidden.
Mhm.
Ways that uh, anyway were at times pretty exhausting, and talk about hope deferred. You saw me
Mm.
and went out of your way to make sure that I was seen, and I just so thankful for our friendship,
Mm.
so thankful for the yes and for the ways that I've grown, and the ways that the things we get to talk about, whether we're recording it or not.
Right.
So, love you. What are you reading right now? What's the thing that's got you jazzed?
Well, you know, first of all, I can't start with that after what you just said. So
You're
I
going
when
yes and me.
yeah, when I when I when I did spot you, and we were on a out in a house overlooking a lake. There was some food available out on the deck, and I saw this guy, that amazing looking guy. His name was Jason Clark, and I said, I got to go meet this guy. He's just oozing with love and light. So yeah, just to instantly feel that connection. And honestly, at a time in my life, and I think I've told you this before, where I had one of probably my closest male friend had recently died, and just feeling a little bit of a loss, and how God just has a way of bringing in others, to fill some of that void, even though
Yeah.
he's the ultimate void filler.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Christ in you is pretty amazing, Jason. So,
I love you, man.
what I love you too. What books am I reading? As always, I am digesting on the Mirror translation of the Bible, because that is one of those that I do not like zip through the Mirror. I chew it one bite
Yeah.
at a time, and
Yeah.
it's almost like anytime I go to it, I can go to a different place and feel like I've never read it before. Only it keeps reinforcing and reinforcing things that the way things that as I've seen it. What else? I'm reading one from Brene Brown,
Yeah.
called "Braving the Wilderness,"
Yeah.
and the subtitle is "The Quest for True Belonging and the Courage to Stand Alone." And to me, when I saw that just a week ago or two, I said, I think I need to buy this, because as you and I have been talking, when we're with each other and others that are kind of on this journey of freedom, of the goodness of God, what happens is there's a less and less judging, less
Yeah.
and less us and them, less and less who's in, who's out, but rather how can we love each other on this journey?
Yeah.
But that's not where everybody's at.
Yep.
And so you and I both are coming out of some tough years of having to stay true to ourselves, stay true to the authenticity within us that knows the goodness of God and knows how we're created in the image of God, and not evil, not bad, but rather created in that divine image, as Second Peter says. And yet that's something that is others find really scary. Others in our culture, our church
Yeah.
family, our
Yeah.
large church family, in many different
Yeah.
aspects. And so when I saw this, I had to get it, and I'll just read one line, because she's writing. She says, as she's writing, I would sit at my desk, and when she's trying to write a book, I would sit at my desk and picture the faces of my least favorite professors, my harshest and most cynical colleagues, and my most unforgiving online critics. If I can keep them happy, I thought, or at the very least quiet, I'll be good to go. And the outcome, she says, was the worst case scenario for a researcher or a social scientist, or I would say you and me and anyone else, is the worst case scenario. She says, findings that were gently folded into a pre-existing way of seeing the world. And I would go back to your flat 2D version before we see
Yep.
the 3D
Yep.
jumping out. Findings that carefully nudged existing ideas, but did so without upsetting anyone. Findings that were safe, filtered, and comfortable, but none of it was authentic.
Wow.
And I said, that's the journey we've been on, Jason, is not just finding what is authentic, but being true to that.
Yeah.
And saying, yes, there is a cost. And you and I both know some of that cost.
Yeah. Yeah.
But man, is the payoff worth it?
Yeah.
It's worth it. You know, and
It's
now
good.
more and more people are finding
Yeah.
freedom. More and more of the Nicodemuses are coming and saying, thank you.
Yeah.
I knew there was something better about Jesus. I just couldn't put my finger on it.
Full circle too. Nicodemus ends up having a beautiful relationship with Jesus, if I remember right, a little bit later on, which is I love a full circle journey, because it's a God who's restoring things. It's beautiful, man.
Do you want to throw out one book you're reading lately?
Well, I edit books to supplement my income.
Uh-huh.
So I have a couple of books I'm reading right now that I'm editing, and then I'm always reading the next book of the person I'm having on the podcast. I don't think I've finished a book in a minute, or even written anything on my own in a minute. My focus has been here. So the Mirror is a daily, almost daily companion. Thankful for Francois and what he's grown at. I am reading Baxter's Jesus and the Undoing of Adam,
Mm-hmm.
Find a minute. Baxter Kruger and I are doing a podcast or a television series together, and so I'm endeavoring to get everything he's written under my belt for the next round of filmings.
That's
But
awesome.
good stuff.
Good stuff.
Good stuff, bro. How do people find you? I'll tell how people find me, but and then
Okay.
you've anything you want to share that you're doing or how people find you.
Yeah. How do you find me? Well, I have a YouTube channel, which is called Vibrant Life. And yeah, I've been doing that for the last 3 years or so. So I got, I don't know, 150 videos on there just to peruse them. Also have a Facebook group, Vibrant Life with Brent Lokker. So you could come on over there. My church website is blazingfire.org. I'm a pastor. Our church is Saturday nights in Dublin, California. And we have a really good time encountering the goodness of his presence. And it may not be church as some of you know it. Some of you may don't even know church, and maybe you don't even have church background. But yeah, I would invite you, if you're in the Bay Area, come on by at 6:00 Saturday nights. So that's how to find me. How about you?
Yep. Familystory.org is where you can find us. And all of my socials are Jason Clark is. Instagram and the Facebook is just Jason Clark, but Instagram and Twitter. And we do have a Facebook group, Rethinking God with Tacos, that has been a really beautiful place for connection and conversation. It's first and foremost a place to connect, but then a safe place to have conversations and lots of resources. People are constantly there sharing something they've found or discovered. So, and yeah, it's good, bro. And you know how much I love doing this with you.
Thank you. And the other part of your question real quick is that I think I'm going to be traveling, to Puerto Rico. There are some things that are opening up. I've been there several times, but I think in the fall. And then also there's a pretty cool thing opening up. There's a friend of mine in Southern California who has a TV station that goes to the Arabic world in the 1040 window. About 150 million Arabic people watch this, and he recently read my book in Arabic as well as Spanish, as well as Spanish. It is in Spanish as well as in English. But he said it's time to have you on this TV. The God's Arabic children desperately need His love. So that's pretty fun.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know about that, so that's cool to hear. Awesome, bro. Well, I love you. This is fun.
Love you too, buddy. I love you too.
I'm glad we could do it, bro.
Absolutely.
Hey, guys. Thanks for listening to the podcast. If you'd like to learn more about the podcast, myself, or our guests, you can go to afamilystory.org. You can also go to afamilystory.org if you'd like to give. This is a listener-supported podcast, and we are incredibly grateful for your generosity. Hey, we have a Facebook group, and it's pretty cool. Rethinking God with Tacos. You can join us over there. Lots of incredible conversation and community taking place on that page. And you can also follow us on all the socials, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and others. Hey, I'd love it also if you went on iTunes and left a review or shared or tweeted or liked the podcast. Let your friends know that this is a good place to hear about the love of God. I pray grace and wonder over your day.